welcome back. Welcome back to Open Your Eyes. We are now moving into our second segment. And this one is actually about Live and Let Live, the Live and Let Live campaign. There was a campaign going on, or there is, and we will be now talking about the results of that campaign and the public sentiment about it. And to tell us more, we've got Dr. Minerva Pinello, who is the director of Right Insight, and also Myrna Chavez, who is a member of Belize Assembly for Persons with Diverse Ability, or BAPDA. They're in with us as we speak. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, everyone.
All right, I'll tell you what, I'm loving the colors there, the good Dr. Minerva. Nice colors, loving those colors this morning. And, you know, directly to you is definitely where I want to, where we want to start with.
Yes.
Live and Let Live, the campaign came out. There were a number of commercials so the entire public could see, and trying to relay this message of lifestyle and how people should be treated in work. That's exactly where we want to go. Talk to us about this campaign, and why was this campaign started? What is it about?
In December of last year, we decided to embark on a study that would allow us to use mixed methods. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the process, both doing interviews one-on-one, also having focus groups. And then by January, we were conducting a poll to collect some information on public sentiments. As you know, we have a lot of national issues that have become pivotal in how we make decisions in the coming months. And along with those decisions, I think there has always been a cry for more data, because often decisions are not made on evidence. And as you can see play out quite often in our country, anyone who is more vocal may get their points across, but those who are less vocal, and I'm talking about marginalized groups or populations that continue to be highly vulnerable, do not get their voices to be elevated. So in December, we conducted 2 focus groups. We met with some activists, some advocates, but we also met with the general public, persons of different age brackets and who came from different districts, to guide us in deciding how best to look at talking about national values and also zooming into discrimination. Because also, if you've noticed, even historically, when you talk about HIV or any epidemic, and now even more so in the face of a pandemic, you see issues of discrimination and stigma come back again. And while we say we're a very united, close-knit community, you have a lot that keeps dividing us. So that's where the aim is, to have a forum, to provide a space through an online campaign that allows us to elevate voices of persons who wouldn't necessarily have a chance to table their concerns, their challenges, but also more so, hopefully, that the general public could be more sensitized and we can increase awareness on issues that are affecting many Belizeans and their families.
Before you proceed into what all the campaign is about, I see that you are the director of Rights Insight. Is Rights Insight an NGO, and how is it funded? Is it a government arm?
No, very interesting, Miss Audrey. I'm a teacher by profession, and I grew into the field of project management. So by 2016, I decided to launch a consultancy firm, and it works necessarily, or at least it looks at how to provide 2 aspects: instructional design. So I do a lot of educational material components, but I also manage content and try to bring issues that could easily remain very abstract for our people and think how we can package it into educational, more informative campaigns. So we are a for-profit consulting firm, but we've been able to partner with many partners regionally, internationally, and we're looking at different topics. So we work on health governance, we look at climate change, and we also look directly at educational campaigns.
Okay, and so on this campaign, when you said that you are looking at marginalized groups that would not be able to do things on their own, what are some of those groups that you're looking at? Who categorize them for us?
Yes, the first group looked at women and some of the impacts it has, particularly within childbearing years, it looks at persons living with a disability, and then we are looking at LGBT groups, as you see in our poll. So those three groups we felt were important to look at and gauge sentiments of mainstream Belizeans. Because sometimes very easily one group can get a lot of attention, but then you don't get to talk about the lives of other vulnerable groups. In the past, I've worked particularly with at-risk youths in Belize City, trying to also look at how to create entrepreneurial drives and initiatives. So our work has really been focused on the community and trying to empower lives.
So has there been any legislation that you all have proposed or sponsored or advocated for, since that you want to go beyond advocacy and to make tangible action movements?
So in terms of tangible action, we want to present more evidence-based data so that decision makers can really understand that sometimes this field is not an either or. We are still missing conversations. We still have a gap in the dialogue of what the general Belizean public has. Again, culturally, sometimes you find Belizeans staying away from discussions just because it's either extreme political, extreme religious. We don't find a neutral ground. We don't find the Kaman, Minerva, Kaman, Myrna, John out there who wants to share what life really is also in our communities, both within urban and rural contexts.
Yes.
And what have we learned from the campaign so far? And is it still going on? And what have we learned so far?
Yes, so the campaign has asked a lot of our Belizeans to volunteer their stories. And so we began filming PSAs, or the public service agreements, announcements, in late January and up to March. We were not able to complete additional PSAs at the time because with the onset of COVID, it wasn't necessarily safe to be exposing, the persons to our camera crews and so on. But it was important to capture at least 5 stories before the onset of the pandemic. And they really range from women who have felt discriminated at work, persons who continue to challenge, society's expectations of what gender orientation looks like. We look for parents, and we look for persons who are very open to sharing without any agenda. I have to say that because it's really more important to look at the lives and the faces behind these statistics. And so with the PSAs, we were able to drive some traffic to our website. We wanted to have additionally more evidence of sentiments, and that's where the idea of a poll was also something that we embarked on.
So on the poll, what have been the results? What can you tell us now? What are the issues and what were the responses? Do you have a breakdown for us?
Yes, so the poll was conducted in only 3 districts. Again, by the end of January, we were contemplating how much we could project into the first quarter. We worked with the more densely populated districts. So we looked at Belize, Cayo, and Orange Walk. And it did show us that there is overwhelming support for women and for addressing some of the issues that they continue to face. And I'm excited to see that, our previous segment looked a lot on some of that gender-based policy or actions that still have perhaps not moved as progressively. It also asked, would people be open to laws that would prohibit discrimination in employment and in public spaces based on a number of criteria? And we did see over 50% support for that. There is still opposition, as you know. There is still a number of Belizeans who probably don't want to comment or make a decision. But it also led us to talk a bit more about the neighborly values, going back to the communities where you respect others, where you talk about being fair because you expect that treatment. And the golden rule. For example, one of the questions said, do you mind if your neighbor is a single mother, is a drug addict, is a person who continues to probably talk about gender orientation differently than you or a person living with AIDS. And it showed us that Belizeans aren't necessarily opposed and continue to still display more tolerance.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the messaging coming out, especially over the past days, makes it seem that it's an either or scenario, and that's not necessarily what we were seeing through the poll.
One of the data I just saw that I read there, it said that 1/5 of women believe that they were not safe in certain environments at times. But that figure rose to 1/3 when it came to LGBT. Are you saying to me that LGBT people feel, or the data shows that they are more at risk than women?
Well, it seems the Belizean public feels, and this could be by stories shared in the media, again, because one voice gets elevated more than the other. It could be that there is a lot more spotlight on stories that come from that community, and so the community perceives it. But that doesn't necessarily align with maybe what you're seeing if you go to the court system or if you talk about gender-based violence through the Ministry of Human Development. So again, you see perceptions varying on that particular question.
That particular issue is frightening to me as a woman, having worked in the system, because I feel that while the LGBT issue needs to be discussed, we haven't even covered the rights of women properly in this country. We have a Sexual Harassment Act that has absolutely no teeth. Sexual harassment, and it's always a majority against women. We have a Domestic Violence Act that still is very lacking when it comes to women. Women are still treated as second class in this society. So I find it alarming. And women, I'm sure, outnumber LGBT, and LGBT being both male and female, and some of them claim not to have a, I don't know, there's like an it. You don't need to choose male or female. But I don't believe that population outnumbers the female population. So it is scary for me as a woman to think that the women issues have not been elevated to the level it needs and does not even get the protection it needs, and then you're saying that the LGBT issue is a bigger concern. That is frightening data. And where did you all collect that data from? I mean, who were the respondents to that survey?
The respondents, we used the list from the electorate. So we looked at the constituencies and we drew from those numbers. And it was either carried out face-to-face or over the phone. So it allowed us to, quickly work through the more densely populated districts, like I said. And we had the support of a firm in Costa Rica, Borges and Associates, to help us to draw more scientifically from it. To Ms. Audrey's earlier point, though, it's exactly what we're saying, that there are some voices that have not been elevated, that you continue to move or talk about different actions without having consideration for other areas that have left unnoticed or unaddressed.
And the other concern, we want to get Ms. Myrna Chavez in the conversation. Myrna, one of the concerns is that I've known for years that people with diverse abilities, because we used to say disabilities then, and we call it, but now it's diverse abilities, have always been one of the groups that have not had the opportunity to be elevated to the level of importance they should. I mean, I remember the times growing up where if you have a child with a disability, as we call it, then
that child is staying, you hide the child. Yes.
You hide that child. So I'm amazed seeing this data that people with diverse abilities have not been elevated to the level that LGBT has been elevated to. Like, what's going on? Is this correct data? Is this a perception? I mean, you tell us from the aspect of person with diverse abilities what you're finding.
Myrna?
Well, yes. For me, living with disability has been maybe different from everyone else because for me, well, first of all, I was with polio. I got polio when I was 3 months old, and I had to learn to live with it. So sometimes I would consider myself, you would say normal. But yeah, sometimes you realize that there's like a whole world. It's different. So I've had experiences where I just feel like sometimes we've been discriminated. Sometimes, but we all do unwillingly we all do, when there's a building and you don't have a ramp,
Yes.
you're discriminating. When you have a shop and you open a store and you don't make a space for a wheelchair, those type of things. But I've seen it more in public places like public transportation.
Yeah.
I myself have experienced difficulties in that, but I think that we can be advised for there's a lot of there's a great population that needs to be heard, or that we need. I feel like I can speak for some of them.
But
Some of,
Myrna, very important what Audrey had mentioned in terms of being in the backbencher. Do you think that, especially when it comes to the survey, Audrey, do you think, Myrna, that you're actually given more of a highlight than or less than, especially when it comes to the LGBT situation? What are your thoughts there, and what do you hope to accomplish at this particular point with this survey?
I think we're given less highlights, because
But is it a priority you're being given? Have you felt that you all have been given a priority as a group?
I'm sorry, what was your question? I
Do
couldn't
you
hear.
feel that people with diverse abilities have been given a priority as a group?
In some cases we have, but there's still a lot to go,
Okay.
A short and to the point answer. What would you like to see happen
For people with diverse,
for people with diverse abilities?
I would like to see more access in life. I would put it that way. I would love to see more availability for in public transportation, like I mentioned before. Recently, I'd like to share an experience.
Sure.
I was visiting Valmopan, and I saw the sidewalks, and I was amazed. And I hope that someday in Belize City we can have that. Me with a wheelchair going on the street. Well, I have a motorized wheelchair right now, and there's not a chance that in Belize City I would use the sidewalks. Which is something that would be the correct thing to do. But they're not just available. I was happy when Mirab had the new building. They are the first store that have elevators. And I would like to see more of that, things like.
for, just for your basic daily movement, right? I
Yes.
mean, many of us take it for granted that we are able to mobilize and move around easily. Our mobility is not limited, but I can appreciate what you're saying. Your mobility, I mean, imagine, however, a simple place like the courthouses. None of them that I know of, I think maybe the family court in Punta Gorda, but I stand to be corrected, has made provisions for people to access it. I mean, I've had clients that have had to show up with the wheelchair, and we literally have to carry them up.
You have to
the
lift
stairs.
them up the stairs.
So to me, that is a priority to so many other things. It's like a priority not only because of you're limiting people's everyday movement, but it's something that tangible that you can do right now that should not be a controversy like so many other issues. And I don't know why it hasn't reached that level, and it's a discussion I've heard for years. We think that we've done great because now at parking lots we have disability
Design
sign
for disability,
to give people space, but even that I find people disrespect. People with absolutely no disability are using those, right?
Using those, yeah.
Don't you find that, Myrna, that's reality what I'm talking about?
A number of experiences I have, now that you mention it. I was once at a company here in Belize City. I was at BEL. I was doing some errands for my electricity. And there's a parking lot that you mentioned, and we parked there. And the security guy came running, and he said that we needed to have a special plate on the vehicle to be able to park there. And even though we explained the situation and I was going to be using the services and that I had a wheelchair, he insisted that we needed to do it quickly because we couldn't stay there too long. So I'm still confused on that. I don't understand if I have to have a plate so I can carry on every vehicle that I have, even a taxi, public,
Yeah.
Also, with buildings, my friend got married like a year ago, and I was there outside the court literally because I couldn't go in. I couldn't access. My wheelchair is very heavy.
Yeah.
And for me, it can be like there's a lot of people who will say, "Oh, let me help you. I'm strong. I can help you." But it's hard to explain that you're putting yourself at risk.
Yeah.
Basic places like Animal Park. I feel I love the sea. I love being there. I love
Yeah.
enjoying nature. And basic things like that, I can't be able to access closeness to the sea or inside the park because, believe it or not, I've been up and down in the park trying to find a way to access the park inside the park, and I couldn't find it. And it's really funny that there's a bathroom inside and it's have a ramp, but there's no way you can access the
Oh
building
my
itself.
gosh.
So you could go into the bathroom if you're there, but you're not able to actually go to the place where the bathroom is at.
Yes.
Right.
And
Yes.
and this is the platform definitely for it. And this is the reason why I really enjoy doing Open Your Eyes, because we're able to talk about these things so we could actually bring these things to light. Now, I'd like to bring back Dr. Minerva Pinello in. Live and Let Live. There is the Equal Opportunities Bill
Yes.
that is floating around, and it has become the center of attention as we speak. Now, Dr. Minerva, I'd like to get your take on it and how the Live and Let Live campaign fits into that. What are your thoughts on it?
As I said earlier, I feel that we have become a highly polarized society where it's either or. We're either one party or the other. We belong to one denomination. It's very easy to look at our lives in compartments or to compartmentalize it, instead of trying to look at where there are points of compromise, where there are areas for us to explore a shared solution. Even if we have differing views, we don't always have to agree to make progress. And I think unless we get past that, we've often seen, and my work has really been focused a lot on the community, where, if it's driven by a donor, for example, you have certain targets and indicators you have to meet. It doesn't necessarily include the community. You don't have consultations. If it's driven for political gains, it's moved along particular lines or communities, excluding others. And so I feel that we have to get past thinking about these differences, and we truly have to talk about leadership, whether political, religious, or otherwise, in our communities, that will be accountable to the masses, and where the masses feel that they have more responsibility, and that they can also make sure that they hold these leaders accountable, because you see a lot of decisions swaying, you see a lot of pressure mounting on something that could have impacted lives of many persons, but it was eclipsed. It was really overshadowed by one discussion on one particular group. Our poll showed that about 49.7% of the persons feel that persons with a disability are treated unfairly. But what happens next?
Doctor, I want to question you there because you make a point. Is it that you're saying that you believe the legislation as it stood should have passed? Or is it that you're saying that, for example, the issue of the person with disabilities is an issue that we can agree on, and that should have been addressed immediately and exclude for now that which remains controversial? What is your position?
Yeah.
I feel that it had to be looked at comprehensively and how it could have impacted more lives, and maybe make amendments on issues that were of concern, obviously, because we're still living in a highly conservative society. We probably still have a lot of expectations, knowing that maybe our government systems will not be able to deliver on those as is because of chronic systemic issues that have built up. So I feel that it was unfair in a way to not give voices to other groups, and to really highlight one group that necessarily probably only would benefit from, say, 5 or 6 of the classifications, and you were leaving maybe 15, 16 of the other classifications out of consideration. So For
So
me personally, I've never been an either or person.
Okay.
I've always looked for, the array of options that we have. And I have very often compromised also in trying to do community work and understanding where differences can still have synergies.
Yes.
So that for me, I think is more important. It's not to just go and say a yes or a no, but to really understand what the implications are going to be. How are we going to move past so much in, especially in the wake of a new election machinery.
I got you talk about implications. Did you recognize in the bill that what the bill actually did was shift the burden of proof, which is a constitutional principle? It shifted it from the person who is the accused to the person who is the defendant, meaning this bill, in no uncertain terms, has written in it that if I make an accusation against Channel 5, my accusation in itself makes Channel 5 guilty until Channel 5 could prove its innocence, which is a total constitutional shift from what our law allows. Our law says you are innocent, so Channel 5 should have been innocent until I could prove my guilt against Channel 5. Did you recognize that? Forget all the classifications, that one point in itself shifted the whole dynamics of our legal process?
I think there is where, to my point of looking at amendments, talking about compromise, ensuring that it is a context that works for Belize, would have been a discussion that would have been more pertinent than just thinking, that it's a yes or a no. I feel, and of course, I'm not competent to comment on any kind of legal aspect.
But that's why I mentioned it to you, for you to understand, right?
Yes, but I think that it was important to revise it to that level where the masses would have spoken, and that it would have been given an opportunity to be tabled in many contexts. We're talking rural, urban, but they're still moving away from a city-centric, and city-centric being both Belize City and Belmopan.
Yes.
It's not representative of somebody's life in Halakte, somebody's life in Shunush. I've worked with communities. I can give you an example again with disability.
Sure.
I went to a village in Orange Walk district, and we were looking at climate change and its impact. So I asked, what happened to the bathroom downstairs? There's no ramp, and it's a recently built building. They said, oh, well, this is a flood-prone area, so we have to make sure that the bathrooms are more accessible on the second floor, less investment on the first floor. But what if a shelteree is a person with a disability?
Yes.
But another thing.
Another
thing, I know you want to give your example, but another thing. Wouldn't you think that if the issues of right and discrimination against a person are relevant, that those matters should go to a court rather than a tribunal and a commission? And I say that because if the government breaches my right under the Constitution, I get to take them to court. Why would the rights of everyone else in the private setting not go directly to the court that has more force of law and an established process where there's some level of certainty and confidence that you can access up to the highest court to enforce your right? But under this bill,
there must be a tribunal.
It is not, in my view, and I stand corrected, it is not giving the same importance by taking it to a tribunal and a commission instead of the court. In a country where a simple employment tribunal has not been appointed for years, and so employees don't even get their rights enforced. Do you understand the implication of where your matter would be litigated or decided as an important factor in the bill?
So if I understand correctly, Ms. Adju, you're saying it will be moved within more of civil law component.
Yes.
Right.
And wouldn't you want your right more enforced in a court rather than leave it up to a tribunal or a commission?
And again, these are the questions I think we would ask the masses, because without having even that kind of understanding.
Yes, I think that was lacking.
As an educator, how do I even try to break down legal language to the communities to help them understand what are the implications of reform, and what they really must say is their understanding or even their consensus on something. So I think we have a huge gap. We don't have anyone really taking the time to do a lot of this sensitization and awareness.
Yes.
And so I can't come out and have an opinion on something that I'm not fully knowledgeable on.
And that's
I mean,
one of my concern with the bill, that a lot of people are looking at some of the emotional things. I see those, but I'm concerned, and I'll say to both of you, because I think Myrna Chavez, it's a matter that impacts on you all tremendously. I think it's unfair that people with diverse abilities should be given a priority. I don't think that their issues should be wrapped up in a bill that is so controversial. If you really want to help people with disabilities or diverse abilities, this is a campaign for decades. Create the special law just for them. Don't wrap it up in something that, like, the campaign was kill the bill. So they killed the bill, but that was one good aspect. And the second thing that concerns me is that while people got wrapped up on all the emotional things, which I try and appreciate, what I realized that many of the laypersons did not understand was the immediate legal implication. The burden of proof has been shifted, and I don't believe that the priority given to discrimination was there, because why would you go to a tribunal or commission that needs extra funding when you already have a court system that has funding and allows you a process of appeal to the highest court that gives you a better sense of protection? Because now these are legal-minded people that you can check and balance them by going to the Caribbean Court of Justice. But a tribunal or a commission that will be politically appointed and people with all kind of interests will be there, I don't have that same confidence given the history of commissions and tribunals in this country. And that was one of my concerns. It's not a question, it's putting it to you all that are advocating and asking you all to try and please go talk with people who know the other side of the coin, or the processes. Because it's one thing for us to pass legislation that says, oh, we are going to protect your rights and stop this, but what process is in place to make it happen?
Yeah.
I'll give you all an example because we have to wrap up.
Yes.
We have a Sexual Harassment Act, and it sounds great. It means that you shouldn't be sexually harassed in the workplace, but go read the mechanism. The mechanism is zilch, useless. Nobody has ever used the legislation because it carries no weight
So there's
in
no weight
helping
there.
you. No. I wish I could go through it in detail for you, and that is what was worrying me, that this bill, with everybody quarreling about, they don't realize that it was nonsensical, the process, burdensome, not a proven system to use.
All right.
I leave you all with that because I'm supposed to be the host, and we have to take a break.
Yeah,
but
Dr.
I know it's
Minerva.
a discussion that needs to continue.
Yes.
And Myrna, I really hope that we can, aside of all of this, really push for basic things like ramps and spaces for people using wheelchairs and with other disabilities. I honestly believe that, and I wish that we can do a campaign only for that, because it's unfair that that should be tied up with all the other things that will not proceed right now.
Dr. Minerva, final words are yours?
Yes, I want to appeal to the general public. I'm a practitioner, so I work with communities, and I think we have to wake up every morning and say, do we want a Belize that's filled with hate and indifference and division, or can we truly think about how best to make compromises among the differences we have and really think more about how to move towards progress? So I want to talk about solution-driven belief.
All right.
Very
Because
good.
otherwise we're going to spend another decade, we're going to lose very passionate professionals to causes that will not be changed.
Very good, and we can start with the conduct of our leaders in the National Assembly.
There you go.
They're the
Dr. Minerva
perfect
Finello,
example.
thank you so very
Yes.
much. Myrna Chavez, thank you as well. It was a wonderful conversation. Definitely one we need to continue to have.
Yes.
We need to
Huge.
take a break though, and when
Thank
we
you
come
both.
back, we will be discussing with the Department of Youth Services about their virtual art exhibit. Stay with us. Open your eyes. Return in just a few.
That'll be a short discussion. We're running out of